You know, I've never been a big fan of labeling myself as a film critic. To me, I'm more of a film buff who gets on the internet and talks about movies in front of like an audience of a couple hundred people simply because I like to, not because I think that I'm the person who should decide whether or not you see the next Marvel movie. I've received plenty of comments in the past that say, "You critics always hate these movies," or conversely, "You critics always give these movies a free pass." First of all, I'm not affiliated with any major publication, and most film critics are. I'm probably about to lose a little bit of integrity because for the second time this year already, I'm going to make amends to one of my previous reviews. I saw Fantastic Four again, and this time we're going to go full spoilers, so this is your one warning to click off if you haven't seen the film yet. And this video might come off as a bit scattershot. This is more so my way of expressing the problems that I had that I couldn't really get into in my first video because they involve spoilers. And second of all, I want to discuss some things that improved for me on second watch and that may affect my final score. Visually, this thing is still excellent, and I don't think that I quite gave it enough credit for its distinct style in my previous video. I did mention the retrofuturism and how the decision to stick with that gave it an artistic sense of identity. But when I think back on it, this might be one of the most stylistically distinct MCU movies ever. At the very least, the most unique post-Endgame. And I won't act like the visual effects are flawless across the board in this film, but the stuff in space looks so damn good. So now let's talk about the story, and more specifically how this skips over the origins of the Fantastic Four, instead jumping straight into a more aged crew. All of these characters have had their powers for some time now. I will again echo that although it's almost like a weight has been lifted from this movie's shoulders by skipping the origin story, it does still leave the film with more work to do in order to build up its characters. And after watching it a second time, I think I understand why the film feels like it's missing things. And that's because it is. I have to imagine some things were cut. For instance, The Thing. It still bothers me that we didn't get a deeper exploration of his self-esteem issues. For better or worse, I'll always appreciate the performance by Michael Chiklis in the early 2000s version because, flaws and all, it explored that element of the character much deeper. Like, I don't understand why they had Natasha Lyonne's character at all, only to show her in two very brief scenes. Moving over to Johnny now, we all know that in the source material he has garnered a reputation of being a womanizer, and I'm glad that they didn't strip him of that for the sake of being progressive, because let's be real, Disney tends to do that. But again, I wanted more of his character. I think it's cool that he does step up in one of my favorite scenes in the entire film, and the scene that I'm referring to is when he, despite being underestimated by all of his peers, deciphers Shalabal's language and manages to disarm her when she comes back to Earth. Set aside that stuff and his jokey persona. What do we really know about this character? Not much, and that's a shame because the charisma's there. I liked Reed better this time. I still don't think he's very complex either. The movie does dip its toes into what could have been with his whole conversation with Sue, in which she accuses him of considering Galactus's offer to spare the planet if they give him Franklin, and his response is, "Yeah, it's my job to think awful things so that I can prevent them." That was a great line, and I wish that the film spent more time exploring how that burdens him. Now, Franklin Richards is, in essence, a MacGuffin that forces the characters to solve the trolley problem. You know, is it right for us to sacrifice one to save the many? And of course, they wind up compromising and finding a way to do neither of those things, but I appreciate how they use this situation as a means for Sue to deliver a rousing speech to the citizens of Manhattan. You know what I don't buy? Reed Richards deciding that in order to save humanity from Galactus, he's going to teleport the entire Earth to another solar system. Now look, I get that this movie is set in a world with magicians, space gods, nanotech, and a whole lot of other shit that doesn't exist in our real material world. But there's no way you can give me a scientifically plausible explanation for how Reed could do this without dooming the Earth. If the laws of physics surrounding solar systems are the same in this canonical universe as they are in our real world, there's no way you could teleport a planet to another spot in the universe without catastrophic consequences. Especially on this time frame. I mean, he literally teleported an egg from one distinct location to another. He had an actual endpoint in mind. How the hell does he know where he's teleporting the Earth to? And on top of that, is it just me or is relocating the residents of Manhattan to Subterranea a horrible idea? All I could think about in that entire third act is how Galactus could take one wrong step and instantly cause the entire place to collapse and crush everyone. Mole Man as a whole was kind of useless. I don't understand why they didn't just evacuate the entire city. Just get everyone out of the area. Either way, the fight with Galactus at the end is pretty great. I've seen a lot of people say that it's anticlimactic. I don't feel that way at all. We finally get to see all of the members of the team use their powers, and the scale of Galactus is so well captured. Concerning the ending, though, with Sue Storm's sacrifice, I do feel that they've written themselves into a corner with Franklin being an infinitely powerful being. Giving any of your characters the ability to resurrect other characters from the dead is a tough spot to put yourself in as a writer. Because what happens now when somebody dies in, let's say, Avengers Doomsday? The first thing that's going to pop into my head, and probably a lot of people's heads, is why doesn't Franklin revive them? I did voice my concern that this video would sound like an incoherent series of ramblings, and I'm sure it probably did, and I feel like I was talking more negatively about the film, when in actuality, I'm going to bump my score up from 3 stars to 3.5. This is like an 8 out of 10 movie from a technical point of view that's stuck with a 6 out of 10 script. There are so many things that they could have improved on in terms of making the characters more deep, but if this makes any sense, most of my problems with the film are not things that are there, but rather things that aren't there that I wish stayed in the film, and I imagine are probably sitting somewhere on the cutting room floor. And according to director Matt Shakman, we probably aren't going to get a director's cut anytime soon. But I'm glad that I saw it a second time, because I feel like sometimes these films are set up with such monumental expectations that you're not allowed to fully soak in the moment when you watch it the first time. Here I was able to take in the scale much more, kind of immerse myself in the science, which is obviously very loosely explained and not always consistent with reality. I did read a statement on the internet the other day that intrigued me enough to go on the internet and seek out some samplings of Jack Kirby's Fantastic Four comics. And I have to say, as much as I do have some gripes, this movie does capture the feel of that world, and I think that's worth a lot. I mean, this is a comic book movie. It should feel like a comic book on the big screen, and I think it succeeds in that. Is it better than Thunderbolts? Because I did give both films now a 3.5 out of 5 stars. It's tough, but I'm going to have to say Thunderbolts is still a tad better because I just feel like that film gave me more emotional fulfillment. But there are certainly things that Fantastic Four does better than Thunderbolts. Since I usually don't invite spoilery discussions in my spoiler-free reviews, this is where I'm going to leave it to you guys. Give me all of your thoughts on pretty much everything involving the story in this film. What do you think about the post-credit scene? Are you happy with the way they introduced Doctor Doom without showing his face? Do you think this is going to be a strong lead-in to Avengers Doomsday? And what are your expectations for that film and the future of the Marvel Universe? Be sure to like the video and hit subscribe if you want more content like this. I'll catch you guys in the next one. See you later.